Okay, so you wrote this great novel, New York best-selling Times,
Yeah.
Horns here, and I even have a copy. I brought even a copy of
Yeah.
the book here. Anyways, how did you come up with this concept for the book?
Um, so Horns is the story of a young man, a decent young man named Ig Parrish, who's very much in love, and then his girlfriend is murdered under mysterious circumstances, and he grieves for her, and in his small town, a lot of people think he's the person who killed her. And one night he goes out in a drunken bender and he curses God, and the next morning when he wakes up, he's growing a pair of horns from his temples. And he discovers he has all the powers of the devil. In particular, he knows everyone's dirty secrets. Everyone he meets feels compelled to confess their sins to him, the things that they've done and the terrible things they want to do. And I think for me, the reason I wanted to write the book was I was curious to know, could you still love people if you knew what was worst in them? Could you still love humanity if all you saw was their worst? And that's really the idea that I was exploring through the course of the book, and that they explore in the movie.
But why did you go when you explored through the book? Why did you went with like sort of like a devilish horns type of thing?
Why does he grow the horns? How did I come to that? I always thought it was kind of a Kafka thing. Gregor Samsa woke up one morning and discovered he had been turned into an insect. I'm fascinated by transformation, and I think all great fiction is ultimately about transformation. And I thought, what would it be like if you had a young man who was, pure, decent, loving, really doesn't think terrible things, self-sacrificing. What would it do to a person to take all of that away and stick him in the devil's role? To make him, to demonize him, and would it destroy his spirit? Would it make him? If his outsides are a devil, would it make his insides into a devil too? Not to give away anything, but my hero Ig Parrish is very challenged. He suffers a lot. He experiences a lot of grief and pain. But I basically decided that in the end you can't destroy someone's decency that easily. I think that Ig takes a beating, but ultimately remains the basically good person that he is inside.
What I found it kind of interesting is sort of like the call was made from sort of like a devilish side rather than God, and especially with the religious overtone in church themes that you actually presented in this, in your novel.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of devil characters in folklore, myth, and religion. I'm from New England, and in New England, the devil is a trickster who turns up and opens the door to let people. He encourages people to chase their temptations, and then stands back and laughs when they get themselves into trouble. And I was kind of interested in writing about that trickster devil, the devil who leads you into temptation, and if you're not eager to give in to temptation, gives you a poke with a pitchfork to get you moving. I'm sort of fascinated by that character. Also, I sort of had this idea in the course of working on the book, if God despises sin and the devil punishes sinners, maybe they're kind of on the same side. Maybe they're both ultimately advocates for good. The idea that in the end the devil is basically striving to create a better world is sort of shocking, but seemed to work in the course of the story.
Now this is a fascinating book. Honestly, I'm only like 3/4 of the way through, but where's the devil? Where's that temptation to write about? Put the devil as a character in the book, but you never really presented it.
Yeah. Why do I think what you're saying is, why the heck does someone write such awful things? I've never been able to write about happy people, and I'm not sure that people are really all that interested in reading about happy situations. My goal is always to put a character through the worst I can possibly imagine and see if they come out the other side. And I definitely think a story where, you hear all your parents' awful secrets and all your loved ones' most terrible thoughts, that would be punishing. It's a paranoid fantasy. And, one of the things, we don't think of Alfred Hitchcock as a horror director. But he was. Back in the day, he was considered the master of horror. And the reason his films are so terrifying and so powerful is because they put their heroes in the center of paranoid fantasies and make it seem real. He puts his heroes in situations where the whole world is against them. And I love that. And in the course of the film, you see, Daniel Radcliffe fighting to keep his soul intact when the whole world turns against him. I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, let's talk about this movie. Personally, have you seen the movie? And,
oh yeah.
And how did it turn out in your opinion?
I think it's lovely. I think it's wonderful. I think the film's a lot more fun than the book. I'm very proud of the book. I think the book is a great entertainment. But the film has a lively energy and a humor which is just exciting, and in particular it has this terrific performance. It's anchored by this terrific performance by Daniel Radcliffe. My hero Ig goes through a lot. He grieves, he experiences anguish, madness, rage, delight, despair, and Daniel Radcliffe was able to explore all that emotional territory and make it look easy. And I always think whenever you see an artist do something difficult and make it look simple, you're seeing someone who's worked very, very hard at their craft. I was very inspired.
Speaking with Daniel Radcliffe, when I was reading the book, I wasn't imagining Daniel Radcliffe in this role. I mean, obviously, when you were writing it, I mean, you probably had a picture or a vision of who Igwitz actually is. I mean, is Daniel Radcliffe even close to what you would imagine?
Well, if you were to ask me, did I think that Daniel Radcliffe would ever star in the picture? I never thought we'd get that lucky. It just blows my mind that he decided he wanted to do the picture and to play this character. I think, right now there's a whole English invasion of just amazing actors. Tom Hiddleston and Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman and, the list goes on of all these terrific young English actors who have come in and Daniel Radcliffe is right there with the best of them and has worked very hard to get there. The only way an actor is able to pull off the things that Dan does in this film is if they're able to set their ego aside and dedicate themselves to their craft. And it's clear that he's done that he's decided that he wants to stick around and explore a lot and do a lot of great work. It's so great to be a little piece of that.
Okay. One last question is obviously this book is your pride and joy, but of course I saw the movie too, and I read parts of your book and I looked and said, well, everything's out of order. Is there like certain beloved scenes that are missing out of the book that you personally miss? I mean, what's your favorite scene that you wish that was in the book that was portrayed better, or that they should actually put it in?
Yeah, they did change a few things, but it's pretty faithful to the spirit of the book. And actually, a couple of the changes they made I actually think work better. I don't want to give away the nature of the bad guy, but I will say that in my book, the bad guy is a pretty straight sociopath like Ted Bundy or the BTK killer. In the movie, he's a lot more complicated and a lot more interesting and a lot more like a real person, like an everyday person. And in some ways, I think that's more terrifying. The idea that someone could be so vicious, that someone could be homicidal in that way, and yet, basically be a normal guy who's kind of part of bro culture. Just one of the boys. I think that's actually more terrifying. So, no, I think that the film is its own work of art and succeeds pretty well on its own terms. So that's great. That's what you hope for.
Okay, well, hey, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate it.